Chicago? What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. We're going to talk about the Cubs with our old buddies Praz and Oleg. Guys, how are you?
Doing well, Andy. Thank you for meeting on such short notice.
We just talked about how we should we have done an emergency podcast for Nicky Lopez signing with the Cubs, or when Nick Madrigal was officially met and we didn't have to worry about him anymore.
Yeah, luckily they were both so close together that we're doing both at the same time.
We're finding out that Jed definitely has a type. He has a thing for former White Sox middle infielders named Nick that are under 6 feet and can't hit for shit.
Yeah, except Nicky Lopez can probably play defense.
He can.
Yeah, he's good.
Which Nick could only do it and pretend.
Right.
Right.
People wanted to act like he could actually play third base.
That's true. Nicky Lopez will not require 3 crow hops to be made to make a throw to first.
Still very worried about Matt Shaw when they ask him about the move from short to third. He's like, "Well, I mean, I know it can be a different throw, but I saw Nick Madrigal, he get some momentum behind." I was like, no, don't do that. Good Lord.
I heard that. It goes on my way to Green Bay. Yeah, and I heard that podcast, and I damn near crashed the car.
Because I was open about it. I was very concerned about premature ejocularity. Nicky had been released, but he hadn't signed with anybody.
Yeah.
I was very worried that Jed was going to be like, well, Nick Madrigal, he's still available. Let's just bring him back.
Yeah, Nico Horner might miss a week or so.
Well, hey, we now know that if the Mets don't re-sign Pete Alonso, that's who the protection for Juan Soto is in the lineup.
He can play first base.
Yeah.
There you go. Probably would be by far the shortest first baseman in the league.
It's a ground ball to Vientos. Oh, he doesn't make the throw. Oh, he didn't know anybody was at first. He didn't think anybody was covering the bag. That's the third time this inning that's happened. Somebody remind him there's a midget standing in front of the bag.
Totally eclipsed by the pitcher right in the middle of him.
You just send up a flare. I'll just throw in that general direction.
Right.
All right.
But the Cubs are they are linked in rumors to actual good players. We'll see if they get any of these guys.
Yeah,
but
yes, they are.
As I wrote about today in the newsletter that apparently would take 8 minutes to read, which was 6 minutes too long for Oleg. The Padres there are 3 Padres linked now to the Cubs.
3,
and none of them are Carmelo Martinez. I'd like to see them bring back.
Or
3.
Or who was it that got traded for himself at that time? Was it Craig Lefferts? Or
did he?
Or Dickie Knowles, maybe.
Dickie Knowles, that was the Tigers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was one of the guys.
Player name later. He was the player name later.
There you go.
Now it's a pretty even trade.
Yeah.
Well,
they trade a guy for himself.
Yeah.
Trade that hurt both teams.
So I see the closer on the picture of the.
Yes. Well, Praz, why don't you tell Oleg who the 3 guys are?
Yeah. So, Cubs are in talks to, potentially get one of Michael King, their former prospect they traded away because Jed can't go a full season without trading for a former prospect that he traded away, whether it's Jeimer Candelario or Isaac Paredes or Tyson Miller. Now it's Dylan Cease.
Yep.
Which is an actual good one this time.
Yep.
Tyson Miller's pretty good too. And third one, Robert Suarez, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
that'd be something.
Yeah. So would finally have, a guy that would throw 100 miles an hour in that bullpen. I think as constructed right now, I'm feeling pretty good about the bullpen. But you add Robert Suarez to the mix, that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's such a weird situation going on in San Diego right now too, with like the whole ownership debacle. That, like, if this were happening with the Cubs, we would probably be complaining about how Ricketts wouldn't want to pay anyone, how Jed doesn't want to make the aggressive move. But this is so incredibly complicated ever since Peter Seidler passed away that, like, they are doing whatever they can to kind of scrap and claw, and they're like the one team that can really get a pass for for moving a guy like this, and they'll probably still be a pretty good team with the core they have with Tatis and Machado. But I mean, if the Cubs were to trade for Dylan Cease, I mean, the pitching staff as a whole looks a hell of a lot better than I think we would all think it does now. I mean, I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, clearly, like, yes. I mean, I didn't know about Suarez, and like King and Cease seem to be natural targets. What do you think? Like, what do you think I'd have to give up? Like, those prospects, man.
Well, I mean,
I would imagine that the Padres would want something like, even Jordan Wicks or somebody who's ready to step in.
That's fine. He would be blocked out of a rotation spot in that case. I would imagine one of Wicks or Assad. Assad has been like the name I've heard that the Padres are way more interested in.
Cool.
Possibly, Owen Casey as well. That was originally their guy. He's another guy who, because of Ian Happ, like, getting the no trade clause that Jed gave him a few years ago is kind of blocked. And, as Andy has discussed on this podcast before, that, like, if you're a Cubs prospect, you can be gone. Like, there's no exactly a sure thing in the Cubs minor league system right now, other than maybe Matt Shaw, and
or ever.
For as much as Jed, I guess one thing I'd give credit to Jed with is, like, for all the moves he's made as of late over the last 2 years, with trading away a Cam Smith and trading away a Zaire Hope and Jackson Paris, they're still the second-ranked farm system in all of baseball. Still got a pretty good talent pool that they could trade from and, really try and go for it in 2025, which, we may have some red flags about them feeling, how we feel about potentially re-signing Kyle Tucker, but if they go for, I'm not going to complain about that now. 2025, I'm feeling good about for this time if, like, they continue in this trajectory.
The most persistent rumor, if for a trade for either King or Cease, would be either Assad or Wicks, either Casey or Alcantara, and then probably a lower level prospect. It would be pretty easy for me to pick for the Cubs. I would trade Wicks and Casey. I wouldn't trade Alcantara or Javi if I could avoid it. But I would think if you're the Padres, Javier Assad's a more normal pitcher than Captain Changeup.
Yeah.
I mean, although maybe that would be good in Petco to throw slower than they can hit it out. And Laxus and I talked about on Thursday, if you have to give up one of the outfielders, to me, I think Alcantara has a better chance to be a useful player because he can do more things.
Right.
He's apparently a good defensive outfielder. He's got speed, plus he's got power, where Casey, I think it's just kind of power. And if he doesn't hit for power, you've just got a big guy lumbering around.
Right.
I just want to put it on record that I couldn't care less which one of those they would trade if they got back Cease or King. Like that, any of those would be totally fine.
I'm mostly in the same boat with you. I feel like because Casey is, formerly of the Padres, that is someone they may have a little bit of interest in, especially, like, consider it. It was AJ Preller back then that made that trade, right?
It was.
It's still AJ Preller today, so
he's probably like, I don't want. Well, I already got rid of him. What the hell do I want him back for? Jed, you're the one that goes and gets those guys back. I don't want him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's, short of Shaw, and I guess Cade Horton, just because you wouldn't be selling high if somebody wanted Cade because he pitched 34 innings last year. Would you really care if they traded anybody?
No.
You wouldn't.
Not as long as there's value. I mean, I get that there's value in having young players, right? Like,
well, but this is what you have them for,
young and
right?
good, right. Yeah.
Because King signed his contract, kind of made it even like, oh, they are in dire straits. He signed a kind of a 2-year contract today. He was arbitration eligible.
Yeah,
and he signed for $4 million with a $3 million signing bonus and a mutual option next year for $15 million.
And those never get picked up.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do think that if both sides need to, they're not gonna.
Right.
So clearly they were, we know you're a, 12 and a half, $15 million pitcher. We can't pay you that.
Right.
So here's what we can pay you. And then we'll tack this on. And maybe if you get hurt, we'll wink, we'll pick up your option, which I would be worried that they really wouldn't do that.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it's more to kind of, he'll get a whatever. If they decline the
qualifying
option,
offer,
get a buyout or whatever. Right. Like, I'm sure there's a buyout.
This early in his career, I wouldn't think so.
Yes,
but
$3.75 million.
Oh,
What is it?
Which is what he'll get.
Yeah.
3.75 is a buyout.
Exactly. So it's a way for them to pay.
Or
But
if a year from now they haven't traded him and they have their financial thing settled and he's good again, then he'll get a normal contract.
Yeah.
Like they won't pick up the mutual option. He won't pick it up and want to negotiate a new deal with them.
I think it's only the $3.75 million that counts for the luxury tax. So that's in effect a 1-year contract, but they spread over 2 years and just give him the buyout on a mutual option.
Yeah, his luxury tax number both years is 7.75.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're treating it. Baseball is treating it like a 2-year, $15 million contract, not a 2-year.
Yes.
Whatever that would be with 22, whatever. I can't do math.
Yep.
He's a year older than Cease, but neither one of them are. He'll be 30 this year. Cease will be 29, so it's basically the same.
Yeah, and they're both free agents last year.
Yeah, and they're both good.
They are both really.
So
good.
I wouldn't care which one they got. I can imagine though, Jed wanting to get Cease, so then he can claim he's got 2 homegrown studs in his rotation. Justin Steele. Well, they'll probably claim Shota too.
Right, I was going to say.
Yeah.
What other big league? What other organization Shota ever played for? Huh?
Yeah.
It's us.
Yeah. I would personally lean Cease just a little bit, just because King, until last season, had never thrown over 105 innings. Previous year with the Yankees, Cease has a little bit more of a pedigree, but can't really go wrong with either one.
He's Jeff Samardzija.
A little more walk problems with Cease and maybe some fly ball issues. You're good for a lot of strikeouts with him. But
did you know that Dylan Cease was an All-American wide receiver?
I did.
Of course. The reason do you remember the Jeff Samardzija thing about? Well, he didn't pitch a lot, so his arm is fresher. That was always the thing. So they say that about King. Well, he's 30, but his arm is like 26.
Yeah.
Where Cease is like 38 because he throws a million miles an hour every time.
Right.
That was the thing with Cedric Benson, right? When he came out of the college, is that he carried the ball more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Everybody was all worried that he got his ass, and it turned out.
Should have been more worried that he'd never taken a boat safety course.
Oh God. Yikes.
Can you imagine if I left that in the podcast? I will, because I'm too lazy to edit anything out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Actually, I need to give Dave Brown credit. Dave had pneumonia.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And he did great, but at the 42-minute mark, he went on a coughing jag that lasted like 4 minutes.
Oh, really? That's what
He's like, you going to leave that in? Yes, I'm going to leave that in. The people will love that.
Had to go full Santo.
Oh,
on the air.
You know what? I may have listened to the end of it and didn't pay attention to that part.
No, I edited it out.
Oh.
It was impressive, I thought. Because I was like, you want to cut it short? He's like, I'm sitting down. What do I care?
Right.
So it's not like I've done anything all day. I'll talk. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Suarez.
That'd be freaking
He-
great.
He didn't start pitching professionally. He was 24.
Okay.
Really?
Pitched a year in Mexico, went to Japan, pitched over there for 5 years, then signed with the Padres. So he's 34, even though it seems like he should be 22.
Wow. I had no idea. All right.
He doesn't throw anything but a fastball.
Okay.
There's a fastball and a sinker and an occasional changeup, which he throws
All right.
92 miles an hour.
That's his
His
change.
average pitch last year was 99.1 miles an hour. And he has a bigger contract than you'd think for a guy who, hasn't pitched in the big leagues that long. It's $8 million.
They have to sign him out of Japan, right?
They gave him. He got the big money after the 22 season when he showed up at the end of the year throwing 1,000,000 miles an hour, and they started leaning on him in the playoffs, and he pitched great. And then he gave up that home run to Bryce Harper that still hasn't landed. And then he missed a lot of 23. He was on the injured list. Then he got busted for putting sticky stuff on the ball.
Oh, is that right? I don't remember that. All right.
But they clearly were not worried. They just let Hader go. They didn't try to keep him and made him the closer. And he was really good last year. He'd be a really nice signing. I saw somebody you got to pay him like $10 million a year. It's like, well, you paid Hector Neris $9 million. Right. I didn't seem to bother. You're paying Presley $8.5. I mean, it seems like this is the going rate, actually. Not.
Yeah.
It's cheap, I would think.
Could potentially
for a top of the line closer, if you can get it for $10 million.
I'll take it.
That's market rate. Could potentially still be paying Hector Neris had they not cut him before he reached that games finished
that was always
clause
the
in
plan.
his contract last year.
What happened to Hector? He went back to Houston. I don't think he has a job yet this year.
Really?
He could come back. Jed, give him a call. Let's run it. How could it be worse? Let's try it again.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Nick Madrigal wants to room with him again.
So
in Syracuse.
Do you want to hear something interesting? I don't know if you guys follow.
It'd be a first time for this podcast.
Hey, I saw it earlier today, and it's been out all day now, so I'm sure that people have already seen it. The PECOTA projections that Baseball Prospectus does every year, right? They run like 10,000 season simulations based on
the ones that back in 2019 all Cubs fans were up in arms over because they projected them to win. What was it, 79 games?
Yeah, they have to be right on. Yeah, it was
not far off from. Yeah,
they're a pretty good projection system. Do you know? So they assign each team the odds of winning their division, right? What would you think out of all the teams in Major League Baseball where the Cubs would be in the odds of winning their division?
Of all the teams in Major League Baseball to win their division,
third.
I saw their projected
because
playoff percentage.
Because it feels like you think it's high.
They're second.
Are the Dodgers are number one?
The Dodgers are number one. The Dodgers have a 97, according to PECOTA, 97.7% chance of winning their division.
Probably says a lot more about the NL Central as a whole than it really does about the Cubs, but take the small victories where we can get them.
So, boy, you couldn't have given me a better softball, Praz. So the Cubs are second. They give them a 79.4% chance of winning division. Do you know where the Cubs rank in win projection in Major League Baseball?
Well, only because I know the number because everybody was freaking out about it on.
Yeah.
So it's 90.
Yes.
So now I got to figure out where 90 is.
Yes.
Third. Since I said third for last, I'll say third.
Indeed.
Indeed. Yeah, very scientific.
So 90.6, right? The Yankees are an 89.7 win, so they're a little bit better, projected to be better than the Yankees a little bit. Well, to have more wins than the Yankees. And yeah, they're third with 90.5 wins. The Dodgers, of course, are projected to win 104 games, 103.8.
Yeah,
real shocker there.
The Braves are projected to be pretty
Would
good.
the Yankees number go up if Paul Goldschmidt gets hit by a train in April?
Probably, yeah.
Do they put that in the simulation?
Yeah, if they coax Ken Phelps out of retirement.
Ken Phelps.
You trade. How could you trade J. Buhner? Hit a rocket for an arm.
Oh man, I will say, looking at those projections earlier today, everyone was encouraged by the Cubs having third best record in MLB, but the top three records are all in the National League. So Cubs would be stuck with the third seed as, going into the playoffs, which thus far under this current playoff format has kind of been like the cursed spot because
because it's always the Brewers.
That's true. It always
that's why it's cursed. It's not like we have their old manager. Yep. Oh shit.
Yeah, damn it.
The Craig Council invitation. Well, this is cool. Hey. We host 2 games to start the playoffs, and we go hunting.
Hey,
Craig, that's not what you're supposed to do.
We found that curse stays with the Brewers, not with
that's
Craig
true.
Council last season.
What happened to ruddy-faced Pat Murphy too?
Exactly.
Well, the White Sox are only projected to finish second to last.
Oh,
really? I saw they were 61.5 they were projected to be on.
Yeah.
Who did they have below them? Second to last in baseball, not in
in baseball.
Rockies or Marlins or
Rockies. Yeah.
Rockies. That makes sense.
Oh, but they're going to get a healthy year out of Chris Bryant. They'll be fine.
150 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait for Huey to predict that in the preview show again this year.
It's going to happen one of these years, isn't it?
For sure.
The guy get healthier as he gets older. Does that work that way?
That's how it works. Yeah. I know I am.
But the thing that, is frustrating to me is you see that they're third, and the projection that PECOTA has for them they're not all that far off from the second seed in the Braves. Braves, I believe, are 92.4 in their simulation.
Yeah.
So it's the sort of thing that kind of makes you wonder, is Jed really that hungry to get one more guy and maybe, push over that?
I could see Jed on the phone with AJ this morning talking about getting close to a deal and then seeing the PECOTA things and going, you know what, AJ, we're good. Click.
Right. Yeah.
90 wins.
It's not like there's
great. That'll save my job. Why would I want to?
That will.
Why would I want 84 would probably. We're improving. Jed, you can stick around.
Well, that's actually one thing I didn't think to look at. What did the rest of the NL Central look like? Like, who was the next best?
It was the Brewers, right? At 80?
Yeah.
Cubs were the only team over 500 in the division.
Yeah. That's right.
Wow.
I can't see the Brewers only winning 8 games.
Why?
Because they got Jackson Cheerios.
Jackson Churio and, the better catching Contreras brother.
Yeah, but they lost to Damas. Who knows how Woodruff's going to come back?
They'll find some. I just suggested tonight, bring back Ernest Riles.
How could they possibly win any more games than 80 after losing Colin Ray to the Cubs?
Well, that's kind of the hidden.
That's
actually. Do you think the Brewers number went up and the Cubs went down when they signed Colin Ray? All right, so we're good. We got the Cubs at 93 wins, and we have the Brewers at 77. What's that? Breaking news. All right, we'll adjust that 3 games in either direction. I don't understand that signing. It doesn't make any sense. Well, he's not any good. He doesn't have any options, so he's just stuck on your roster until inevitably they have to DFA him because they're like, "Oh, we can't send him down." Colin, how's the elbow? Huh? It hurts? No? Yeah. You might want it to ache.
I think the idea for him isn't to actually start any games. It's, to kind of come in and pitch 5 innings of the starter.
I wouldn't hold my breath on that, considering how many games Matthew Boyd has, pitched the last few years. And
there's going to be starts.
Yeah, I would hope that Horton and Wicks are in front of Boyd or in front of
for
Ray.
Sure. Assuming they're still here, Ben Brown would factor into
Ben
that
Brown
too.
maybe. Hello.
Yeah.
I think if Cade Horton pitches, there's a bold prediction on February 3rd. If he pitches for the Cubs, he's going to be out of the bullpen this year.
Mm-hmm.
You're only saying that because that was your whole thing last year.
Yeah, they told him bring him up. Yes. They should have because he got hurt starting. He wouldn't have got hurt as a reliever.
Yeah.
When the Cubs were desperate for a new closer, that's who you were floating out there, which would have been nice if you could.
But he threw 34 innings last year, so if you bring him up this year, wouldn't you? How many innings can you realistically push him to this year? Not that many.
50, maybe.
That's how they used to do it in the good old days.
Yeah.
They bring Fergie Jenkins up, and then the Phillies. I'm sure Fergie pitched out of the bullpen when he first came up to the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
It was good enough for Fergie. It's good enough for Cade Horton.
That was Carlos Zambrano when he first came up too. If I remember right.
So if you add, I said I'm not greedy. I don't need all three of those Padres. Just two would be good.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll take any two of those three.
So let's say it takes Assad, Casey, and
Triantos. I don't care.
It seems like that's. I don't even think you'd have. Well, okay, let's not put Triantos in it yet.
Okay.
Just some other Class A.
Assad, Casey.
Then you add Suarez.
Yeah.
Then maybe you upgrade Schnook to Triantos.
Right.
And then you trim somebody I don't like. My suggestion was, why don't you trade them Jeremiah Estrada so he can be their new closer?
There you go.
Oh, that's right. You released him, and it will be their new closer because they just got him for nothing last year. It was really infuriating to go back to the transaction log and see why they DFA'd him. You can tell around the date. You can look who. Well, he got DFA'd when they had to put the 60-day IL guys back on the 40-man.
Oh no!
And it was a bunch of whizzes. It was Nick Madrigal,
of course,
was one of them. Brandon Hughes.
Hey, he's back now.
Luis Vazquez, who didn't come off the 60, but he had to be put on the. You had to put him on the 40 or lose him.
Right.
And Ethan Roberts.
And all those guys are gone except for Ethan Roberts, right?
He was back now.
Well,
he's come back on a minor league.
Yeah, he was his back, but
yes, but he had left. They DFA'd 3 of the 4.
Good.
Their self-scouting is always impeccable with the Cubs. Good job. AJ Preller does a good job of identifying prospects to trade for. So it would be a good exercise for the Cubs at the beginning of every offseason to start talking trade with him, see what players he's interested in, and then keep those guys and dump some of the other guys.
I mean, we know from past experiences with AJ Preller and making trades that, back in the offseason of 2020 when the Padres' farm system was flush with prospects, the guys they got for Yu Darvish were guys who had never played a professional game of baseball to that point. And, even if you have the highest hopes for Owen Casey that'll be a solid major leaguer, you would have thought by now he'd probably be up.
They have nowhere to put him. He's blocked by the Gold Glove of Ian Happ.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, all those guys are so young. 2 of them are still haven't pitched higher than haven't played higher than Myrtle Beach.
Preciado, right?
Yeah. And one of them's out. One of them's already out of baseball. And then Casey has progressed at kind of like the normal speed. Wasn't he 20 or 21 when they got him? So, but yeah, I don't think he's like this budding superstar, is it?
Right. But Andy, just make sure that you pronounce his name properly. It's ONKC.
KC, yes. That's Cole Wright told me how to say it. That's great. Yeah, when and Preller made all those trades the last couple of years to load up for the Padres. And who was the one guy he just miraculously didn't trade? It was Jackson Merrill.
Jackson Merrill?
Yeah. Wow. Like the one guy is like, I think maybe we'll hang on to this one. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're a National League Jackson that made your Major League debut last year, pretty good. Not so much for the American League Jackson, but
maybe the Cubs could get Yu Darvish, and then Roki Sasaki would want to sign with them.
Yes, there you go.
Oh wait, that's right, that didn't happen. I really thought Roki. I thought he was going to pick the Padres over the Dodgers.
You know what?
But apparently he had decided on the Dodgers like 2 years ago. So no, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Weirdly, if he had to pick one of those 2 Southern California teams, it's probably better that he picked the Dodgers from a Cubs perspective. Just because, the Dodgers were already going to win the NL West. Now they're going to win the NL West by a wider margin.
Oh,
it doesn't really block the Cubs from getting.
Well, there is that thought too, right? Like you might as well. They might as well just get all the good players now.
Right.
Because that makes life easier when you play every other team but them, and then maybe they'll be like they'll all get dysentery or something right before the playoff series.
Gigantism.
Wipe out the whole side and beat them.
Andy, I know you're a listener of the Roundtable podcast with Grant Bisbee and Andy McCullough, and I think I remember they were saying something about how either banged up or unprepared the Dodgers starting rotation is going to look to enter the season, that it will probably be like Tony Gonsolin making the opening day start in Japan, in the same rotation with Yamamoto and Sasaki in Japan, two Japanese stars, and Ohtani probably, because he might not be pitching by then.
Well, and I guess it was Dave made a really good point about the Dodgers. They still have holes. Like, they still just don't want to go out and get a shortstop. It's almost like, wow, we got to have something to make us a challenge. Let's just play without a shortstop.
Well, wait, what did they go get? They went,
do you know who their projected starting shortstop is right now, Oleg?
Is it Mookie again?
I believe it is Mookie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, wouldn't you just play Tommy Edman there at this point?
That's what it was. I thought it was going to be Tommy Edman.
But they're always going to go play him. They claim they're going to play him in center. And then by June, Mookie will be back in the outfield like normal. And they'll just shuffle it around and they'll have a regular lineup. And the reason, they've won 2 World Series now since 2020, but this run has been going on since the year before the Cubs beat them in the.
Yes.
And they've only won twice, and it's almost always because they get to the playoffs and their pitching is in a shambles.
Yeah.
So you could see why they're like, you know what, fuck it, let's just sign everybody. And we got to have 8 of them healthy by October, don't we? But what are the odds?
Yeah, they're just trying to cover innings in the regular season. They don't care who pitches how much. On a per inning basis, they know they're going to be really good.
Quick little aside when it comes to like the Dodgers' playoff success as it compares to the Cubs. Were you guys aware that I didn't find this out until a couple days ago? When they won the World Series in 1988, they did not win another playoff series until they swept the Cubs in 2008. And then ever since then, they've been like a perennial, they were a semi-regular playoff team in like the late 2000s and then early 2010s, but like, then taking off now ever since then. But like, yeah. Cubs back then had to make them the king.
They didn't have a lot of good teams in the 90s.
No, they didn't. And that 2008 team, if it wasn't for the magic bat of Manny Ramirez.
Oh, yeah.
They might not have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like they got him and he just got hotter than shit. I mean, he obviously double dosed and went nuts. Then he hit that home run against the Cubs where he hit it, the ball was underground and he still managed to somehow hit it out.
Yeah. The ball almost hit where Steve Goodman is buried. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they had a good long run of blah. Well, it was after. How could you replace Tommy Lasorda?
Right.
Just couldn't do it.
Yeah. The Dodgers, they're going to be good.
Well, the Cubs can set the tone.
They can. Just
in
come
mid-March. These are probably the 2 biggest games of the year. Those games in mid-March in some weird, oddly lit dome in Japan at 5:00 in the morning.
You do joke, but the Cubs will be done with the Dodgers by the time the calendar flips over to May. Good. So, like, they'll kind of not really be a concern if they can take care of business against them.
Won't see him again till the NLCS, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
At Wrigley Field. When it opens at Wrigley, the Cubs with home field advantage.
Is this the part where we can ask like for the listeners to go to GoFundMe so I can buy a ticket to go to the
Japan?
Yeah, exactly.
Like $3,000 tickets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like on the second day.
I know exactly where you're going with that one, Oleg.
Holy shit. $3,000 for opening day.
Well, let's say the Cubs pull off a trade. They get either King or Cease.
Okay.
How pissed off would MLB be if then Council is like, well, I mean, my number 1 and 2 starters are Dylan Cease and Justin Steele. So Shota can start game 3.
Yeah.
Right.
In Arizona or wherever. I think they start. I think they open against the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, I guess you can't really do that. You can do that in the playoffs. I was going to say it's almost like you can hold back starters, but you really can't start on the 25-man. They have Major League. You can't put them on a 15-day DL yet, or a 10-day DL or whatever.
Oh, you're saying that? Even like,
yeah, they wouldn't even bring the other 3 starters.
I honestly, I don't know how
they can.
I don't know how the roster works for this game.
Yeah,
because you don't have to make your final cuts. So
no, you have a 25. I mean, you have your.
So I think
26
anybody
roster.
on your 40-man roster would be eligible for this. So you
Yeah,
literally
but
could just leave. It's not like you have to cut Shota to not put him on the Japanese
Well, yeah, I
travel
think you
roster.
do. That's my point. I think
I
you
don't
would
think you
have to like send him to waivers if you weren't going to put him on the 25-man roster.
No, I don't think you do.
No.
Yeah.
It's not the playoffs.
Because this is different. Like the way you have to make the roster decisions, they come back for another 10 days of spring training after
I
this.
understand.
They
but-
don't have to make their final 26-man roster picks.
Well, it doesn't have to be final, but it has to be for that series. Like I would imagine. You. What else do you do with Shota? He's on the 40-man. He's on
Well,
the.
I mean, obviously,
contract.
well, we don't have to use Shota as an example because Shota's going to pitch one of the two games. But there will be guys that will make the team that will be on the team who won't go to Japan.
Well, yeah,
Correct.
The ones you can option.
I don't think you have to option them.
I don't
Yeah,
think.
I don't
think you have to make your final roster. It wouldn't be fair to the two teams going to Japan
if James
that they have to make their final roster decisions 2 weeks before everybody else.
They don't have to be final roster decisions, but they have to be final for those two games. Then you can change it for the next series. But you have to there's nowhere else to put the players from a logistical point of view.
There's no way you could There's no way you could do it. You just have to. The way I believe it works is you can have anybody on your 40-man roster active for the games in Japan, and it doesn't mean that the other 14 guys have to go through waivers.
Like Jameson Taillon, if he is not a starter in one,
I would guess he won't be on the roster when they go to Japan.
He just won't be on the roster.
There will be starting pitchers who will stay in Arizona to pitch in the Cubs, because it's not even that the Cubs go a week early. They play exhibition games in Japan.
No, I understand.
They're not going to take everybody. There will be starting pitchers who will be starting games. They'll still be playing games in Arizona at the same time.
Understand. I get all that, but legit, from a roster point of view, it's not the playoffs. Like in the playoffs, I get it, but from a roster point of view, what would be Taillon's designation for those two games if he doesn't make the 26-man roster?
You're acting
just Phantom IL him or something.
No, you don't even have to do that. These games are different than they count, but the way the roster works is not the same. I guarantee you it's not the same.
I would imagine that they'll probably treat these two games as if they're the one game wild card. Well, they'll probably bring a grand total of about 4 starting pitchers with them. Like the 2 that are going to start, the 2 that you throw in there just in case one of them has an injury or something like that early, or gets into some trouble early.
No, I'm not worried about them not taking enough players. Right, they're obviously going to take enough players. But how do you get service time for those 2 days? Right, if you're Taillon and you don't make the roster or whatever, if you don't, I'm not suggesting you don't make the trip. Right, they'll bring 40 guys on the trip just because of the exhibition games and things like that. Maybe more than that. My point is that Taillon, he will get he'll get the service time for those 2 days. You can't just leave him off the roster. This isn't the playoffs. That's what I'm suggesting.
I don't know. We're gonna have to look at it because I don't think it works that way. I don't think they worry about it those 2 days.
All right. I mean, maybe.
I wonder, were there 2 teams playing there last year? Was it Dodgers, Padres? I want to say.
Because if this game was in the middle of the year, then the normal roster rules would apply.
Well, that's what happens when you go to London,
right? So
but they also don't. You don't have to go back and then have practice games for 2 weeks afterwards.
I totally get what you're saying, but those players have to be designated. They have to have the service time, and therefore they have to be on the roster. And you could just change that roster again. The players who can be optioned may get optioned. The players who are non-roster invitees in spring training who aren't on the 40-man, you want to put them on the roster. You still have to do the normal roster machinations, right?
Let's see. When was the last time they did this? What is?
I'm pretty sure there was one last year.
2024. Yeah, Dodgers Padres.
Yep. And was there any with the Dodgers, it would be weird to try and find out who really went and who they kept behind, because they had so many injuries in the rotation that you couldn't really tell who made the actual team. I mean, when they came to Wrigley early last year, they had Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone starting games for them. So
sure. Well, that's not what I'm saying, right? Like my point is, like, if you're a starter and you know you're not going to pitch in one of those 2 games, you still have to be on the roster in order to be on the roster. In order to be,
yeah, I do wonder how that
that
whole
I don't know.
construction would work.
I don't know.
I probably should have looked at the other one. I'm looking at the Dodgers roster for the opener, and because their pitching staff was all beat up, like always.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Because it's mostly bullpen guys, but that doesn't necessarily mean
Right.
Brazier, Fireeisen, Grove, Hudson, Hurt, Kelly, Knack, Evan Phillips, Gus Varland, Alex Vesia,
yeah.
Yamamoto, and Yarborough.
Well, who were the starters on the team?
Glasnow and Yamamoto.
Yeah, Yamamoto, I know for sure. Because that was when he made his major league debut.
But it's hard to tell because the guys who were on the injured list.
Okay.
Kershaw for sure.
Oh no, they weren't all on the injured list.
Oh, okay. So it was special.
It said they get to reset their roster for the regular opener.
Okay.
So they loaded up with extra relievers.
So Gavin Stone you didn't mention, so he didn't make the trip and he didn't make the roster. But I wonder if he had options left. This is fascinating listening.
It looks like the 140-man move they had to make was they had to put Daniel Hudson on the 40-man so he could pitch.
Sure.
Huh.
But okay. But anybody who was not on the IL, who didn't have an option, was also just sort of left off the roster.
I think you could just pick 26 guys off your 40-man.
Okay.
It didn't matter.
Fair enough.
And then you had to set it for real before the real season started. That's when you actually had to send guys to the option guys to the minors and release guys.
Because I do suppose you'll get those 2 days back for service time calculations because you get 2 extra off days.
I don't know that 2 days make any difference.
No.
Oh, it does if you're like a rookie
if you're 2 days short. Yeah. But
it did for Chris Bryant, 27 or.
Yeah, imagine if this is how the 2015 Cubs were opening their season.
Yeah.
How many people?
Yeah, they wouldn't have. It would have been Mike Holt. Right. Why wouldn't it? They didn't care. They just started the real season without it. They would have done the same thing.
Yep.
This would actually be This would be
an easier decision. Yeah,
an easier way to do it and not get everybody pissed.
So I guess we'll see if Matt Shaw's on the roster then. Matt Shaw makes the trip.
Well, it's different now, though. Like the Cubs, there's an incentive for them to actually start the season with him on the roster. Because if he wins Rookie of the Year or whatever, you get a draft pick for it. It's worth the shot.
Have to worry about like this whole free agency saving money for the next year. Like what the fuck?
No, and honestly, they're sitting here like they're sweating out if they should trade for one of these guys or go sign if Alex Bregman falls in their lap.
Right.
Like they should. If you were a real baseball team, you'd be on the horn with the Padres trying to get a starter and a reliever, and you'd be on the horn with Bregman trying to sign him, and you'd worry about it all later. I mean, what the hell are they?
Do we know, has Bregman ever played any first at all? Because I had a thought about him that, like, it was always a thing that I would complain about all last year was, like, all the time that Michael Busch would not get you'd see Patrick Wisdom at first, or early in the season Garrett Cooper or Matt Mervis at first instead of Busch. And I'm just thinking to myself, all right, if Craig really does prefer to like not really play Busch at first base and Bregman could play there, might make it a little bit more of a attractive move for them to make.
He's also tiny. He's a small man.
Yeah, but I don't. Why Bregman wouldn't sign if you told him he was going to play first base?
Yeah, good point. I just wonder, like,
Yes, we got John Birdie for that, man. That's
okay.
That's what John Birdie is for.
Not a bad pickup.
Bob Costas was still super excited about every time he caught a ground ball at first base. Look at him! It's like he's a good infielder, Bob. Yeah. That's the easiest spot. Remember the Juan Washington thing? He's full of shit. Yeah. It is easy to play first base. Yeah, my favorite stat now that I have about John Birdie is that at the year he led the National League with 41 stolen bases, he scored 47 runs.
God.
Clearly, those were clutch stolen bases for the Marlins.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's for the Marlins. So
those post-Yelich, Ozuna, Stanton trade Marlins or something special.
He got really good at standing on the bag at third and taking his helmet off and putting his batting gloves in it and handing it to the third base coach. You take this into the dugout for me? Yeah,
that takes a lot of... That's skill.
Exactly.
You can't just teach that.
The Birdie thing is fine. I don't know. They seem to though be stocking up on utility infielders. Thank God we have Gage Workman though.
Yeah.
Thank God we have Vidal Brujan, whatever he does.
Yep. That'll be great. So Praz, elegantly look up what you sent me.
I should have just had it ready to go.
No. Okay, you something Jed keeps saying is troubling you.
So something that he keeps saying like over and over again every time he talks to the media.
Is it when he laughs?
Yes, the laugh. Yeah, that.
Might have that.
No, just every time I hear him talk about, how much of a factor like the bad weather at Wrigley was for the hitters last year, thinking that like, A, that's not something you can really control, but B, if that is something that goes in the Cubs hitters' favor next year, it's going to be a real concern for their pitchers, in my opinion. There it is. There's Judd.
But they were a good hitting team in the first 2 weeks of April.
When was Howland up?
Yeah,
I don't know if it was.
No, I don't like they were like
You're not wrong.
Really
they had some
those first like 2 or 3 weeks of April. They were
look, it helps when you get to have a home opener against the Rockies and they gift you 3 runs.
Well, whatever. Michael Busch hit like 5 home runs in like the first.
Yeah, most of those were but those were all on the coast. They weren't at Wrigley.
Yeah, whatever.
Right, exactly. That crazy streak he had.
So the hitters just got bad in the cold weather?
Yeah.
Honestly, they probably got bad in the warm weather.
He goes on and on about it. And
yeah.
And he only will pay like lip service to the idea then that, well, maybe that's why Shota was so fucking good.
Exactly.
Because he's a fly ball pitcher and every fly ball got knocked down.
That was clearly the case. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that the projection systems like him as much as they do, but there were so many fly balls that just died on the track.
Yeah.
Well, even with the great season that Shota had last year, he didn't he lead the league in home runs allowed or close to the top of the leaderboard in that? 27 home runs allowed in 29 starts. Granted, he doesn't get into a lot of trouble with runners on base, so the vast majority of them are solo shots. But it's something that concerns me kind of for the Cubs rotation as a whole, because I looked this up earlier today. There were 19 qualified starting pitchers last season that had a ground ball to fly ball ratio under 1. So they allowed more fly balls than these are guys that allowed more fly balls than they did ground balls.
Okay.
And 3 of those guys, if Colin Ray makes the rotation, project to be in the Cubs starting rotation. Shota Imanaga, 47.1% fly ball rate. Jameson Taillon, 40.5% fly ball rate. That's probably the guy who's like the biggest red flag after the one pretty good season he had last year after not being so great the year before. And then Colin Ray, 40.7% fly ball rate. And those guys, opponents' batting averages on balls in play, Shota allowed 264, Taillon 269, Colin Ray 282. Like,
oh god, and that was with Nick Madrigal at third.
Yes.
Just imagine how much worse it'll be now.
God.
Actually, not having Morel over there for half a season.
Yeah,
it probably will actually help Shota.
I
guess not if there never any ground balls.
Yeah.
And
so Shota was this is interesting. Shota was 13th in baseball last year in home runs allowed. But what do you think he was in the National League?
Had to be up there. I'm thinking like second or third.
Yeah, third. which is crazy.
third.
It's not like that's a stat you would have looked at as well because of the DH. Well, no, everybody's got a DH.
Yeah.
What the hell are these American League pitchers serving up so many homers? But guess who was second in the National League?
Max
He is-
Ray.
Our old friend Kyle Hendricks, sadly.
No, Colin Ray.
Oh my God.
Yes. 7th overall and second in the National League with 32 bombs allowed. Is that right? Where's the... No, how many homers?
Well,
Oh, I gotta go way over here. It's a lot. I can't find it. Oh, it's the first column. 29. But Aaron Nola led the league with 30, and he's good.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
you can pitch around it.
You can pitch around it.
Bert
as long
Blyleven
as-
gave up, what? 50
Yeah,
one year, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And he's a Hall of Famer. So
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the thing with I thought it was it Matt? It couldn't have been Maddox. I thought Maddox gave up like his fair share of home runs.
In 86 and 87, Bert Blyleven gave up 96 home runs. He won 17 games in 96 or 86. 86 and 87. 17 games in 86 and 15 games in 87. So there you go.
Those weren't exactly home run hitting environments.
Well, he was pitching in the Homer Dome.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But you don't walk anyone, you don't
Greg
no one gets on
Maddux,
base.
the most home runs he gave up, of course, 2004 for the Cubs. 35.
Geez.
Yeah.
During his prime,
One of his Braves years.
1994, he gave up 4 home runs.
Jesus.
He
That was cut short by a strike.
He gave up 7 in his last year with the Cubs.
Yeah.
7.
And
We
how
don't
many-
need to sign him.
Great job, Larry Himes.
Oh, you mean in 92?
What did I say? 97, 91, 92.
Yeah.
7
92.
home runs.
7 home runs allowed in 268 innings. That's
Yep.
incredible. Wow.
He did lead the league in batters hit, though. So very erratic. 14.
Eh. If you're gonna intentionally walk him anyway, you might as well make it hurt.
I can't look at Greggy's page. It just depresses me.
Yeah, I know.
He MLB Network had that documentary on him.
Yeah.
It was really good. The one thing they kind of I didn't really care because it still made the Cubs look bad, but they did not portray his contract squabbles with the Cubs correctly. The part they talked about was true and it was ridiculous. So the Cubs talked to him in spring training before 92 and they made him an offer and he's like, well, I think I'm worth more than that. They said, yeah, but you've never won 20 games. You never won the Cy Young. So he wins 20 games and the Cy Young. And they made him the exact same offer. And he said, well, I thought you were going to offer me more if I did both of those things. And they're like, what?
God.
So that's when he went out. That's when he had Boris go shopping. And the part they left out is that the Cubs made him then a much better offer. And he agreed to it. Or they agreed to basic terms. And Larry Himes took it to the Stanton Cook, who was like his boss at the Tribune. It's like, we're not paying him that. So Himes had to call Boris and go, yeah, they won't do it. And that's when he left.
Wow, that's it. It's
And
like
he told Boris to call the Yankees, but he had no intention to go. He was never going to go to the Yankees. He just knew the Yankees would make him a big offer, and then the Braves matched it, and he went to it.
I remember seeing that because he wanted to stick in the National League and face hitters he was familiar with. Yeah, freaking the Cubs version of who was the Bears coach in the late '90s that they thought they hired, McGinnis.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to compare Greg Maddux to Dave McGinnis.
Well, similar circumstances in that.
Ironically, the Bears had to settle for Dick Duran, who was probably a better coach than Dave McGinnis.
That's true.
And it got Mike McCaskey fired or whatever. Sent out to pasture, whatever grandma or mom did to him. But yeah, I mean, it's such it scarred us all so much. I know, I mean, there were a lot of us who, when the Ben Johnson news first came out,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, fuck, I bet they just did it again.
Literally the first thought.
Nobody is, does he know that they're telling everybody that they hired him? He did.
I think
$13 million a year for 5 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing those tweets go around the day that the Cubs hired Joe Madden back in 2014. Like, what if they're pulling a Dave McGinnis here and he doesn't show up?
But Huey and I talked about it on Remember This Crap. What the fuck was Dave McGinnis doing? Like, now you get twice the money now.
Yeah.
But he just wouldn't. He's like, well, I can't go there now. What do you mean you can't go there? This is when you're like, oh, this is going to cost you now. Like, and you want to be embarrassed by me not coming, or do you want to give me an extra? I don't know what he was getting paid. Another 40% on my deal. Right. But he was just like, nah, not going to do it. I'd rather go. I'll end up coaching for Bill Bidwell. It'll be so much better.
Nah.
Find another hapless family that'll hire me.
Yeah, hapless Chicago football family. Jeez.
That's a fun bunch. But yeah, so there's still all this talk that Bregman's just going to go back to the Astros, but I don't know that the Astros cleared enough money to stay. They want to stay under the luxury tax.
Right.
Jim Crane has never paid the luxury tax. He never wants to.
Well, what's going to happen is they got to trade Camp Smith back to the Cubs because then he'll be blocked by Bregman if that's.
There you go.
Yeah. That's good. Well, but the ridiculous plan if they bring Bregman back to play Paredes at second and Altuve in left. What are you doing?
That's pretty funny.
Well, that's not for us to worry about.
So
Astros want to fuck up their lineup. Go get them.
Yeah, was that what you were unbothered about the Judd Hoyer thing? Sorry,
about the wind.
Well, what was Praz?
Yes,
that's what the
comments about the wind. Because there is no scenario where it's beneficial to both the pitchers on the Cubs and the hitters on the Cubs. Okay. Especially for, as fly ball dependent as these guys are. Even if you go out and get a Dylan Cease, that's still a little bit of a downgrade from pitcher friendliness to the ballpark, that he'd be leaving, because Petco is by far one of the friendliest, and then coming to Wrigley where, flip a coin on any given day, whether it's a hitter's park or a pitcher's park.
Could they get Dylan Maples back? Because the wind doesn't bother him.
Yes, they probably could.
He can hit the backstop with a fastball regardless of the wind. That's no problem.
The Cubs, or coincidentally, the Cubs do their home openers against the Padres. So.
The Dylan Cease, Robert Suarez revenge game.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, that was the wind blowing in should not have kept you from winning games, because it should have had the same effect on your opponent.
Right.
Correct.
The run scoring environment is the same for both teams. So I didn't quite understand it. And then at Cub Convention, Council was talking about, they said the guy it impacted the most was Patrick Wisdom.
Yeah. I remember
he was queued up with that by Boog, though. Ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. Talking about, and everybody remembers the game against the Cardinals where it looked like Wisdom hit the home run to win the game, and instead it ends up dropping straight down. It reminded me of Javi
against the Giants,
where he crushed it, and you're like, oh, that thing is to the end. Vasgersian loses his mind. He thinks that thing's going to the lake, and it lands in the basket. Well, Wisdom crushed it, and everybody's like, oh, that's gone. In fact, whoever was pitching for the Cardinals, I think it was Halsey, right? Helsley,
yeah.
Halsey, the singer.
Halsey.
She's good. I like her.
She is.
He thought the game was over. He thought he gave it. They stand there like, oh, fuck. And then he sees the guy catch it, and he's like, oh, wow, good pitch. Yeah, good pitch. Fuck you.
Well, I will say this. The Cubs were 17-9, like, in the early parts of it, like, through the first 26 games.
Yeah, they got bad when their bullpen completely imploded.
Yes.
Correct.
It had nothing to do with their...
Speaking of more games against the Padres.
I mean, they were giving away games they were ahead late over and over and over again. And they're like, I think at some point this is going to hurt them.
Yeah.
And it did. And whose fault was that, Jed? Who's the one who just didn't bother to fix the bullpen? Oh,
Well,
that's why he owes us. He owes us Robert Suarez.
Yes, owes us Robert Suarez. I'm encouraged by them going out and getting Ryan Presley from the Astros. Like even if he is a little up there in age, I know you and Loxus were going over like all the geriatrics in their bullpen now, especially if they wind up re-signing.
I don't see any reason he can't be as good as Doug Jones was for the Cup.
All right.
I hope the bar is
Dave
a little
Smith?
higher than that.
How about Goose Gossage? Oh, Rick Aguilera.
You know what?
Joe Nathan?
All right.
I'd settle
Who was
for
all right?
2020 Craig Kimbrell at this point.
For what they gave up and what they paid for Presley, that's a no-brainer. You do that
for sure
every day. Yeah.
Well, the thing that I would say I'm most encouraged by is like, last season they go into it with Adbert still closing after he had kind of had a little bit of a hot streak as closer, but like, maybe we shouldn't have been as trusting as we were in him, myself included, because
it was health related though.
It was
Adbert's problem was his arm fell off.
Yeah.
What is he now? He's a Met now? Is that
He's
what
a
you're
Met.
saying?
Yeah. There you go.
Well, he might actually be rooming with Madrigal because he's probably going to have to rehab all year so he can hang out in Syracuse with Nick.
Yeah, they'll be riding the rides at Coney Island.
That may be sad.
I mean, you can draw a line.
No,
that's true. You can draw a line when Adbert finally went on the injured list 2 years ago. They didn't pitch well again. How the Cubs he goes through an entire offseason and then he needs surgery. Gee, what a shock. Who could have possibly thought that might have happened? That's right.
Yeah. I guess I didn't want to see them go into the season with Porter Hodge closing and potentially go down that same road again and have him struggle in a role where he had briefly been good like Adbert had, but not, a full-time guy like that. Sorry to cut you off.
I was going to say, well, Hodge, there is one big concern. Him throwing strikes. But nobody hits him.
It's true.
He was impressive, but yeah, it was a lot of high wire, like a lot of 3-0s that he's trying to turn into 3-3s. It's like, Porter, maybe get ahead of somebody once in a while who wouldn't kill you.
Right.
But yeah, 43 innings. He struck out 52. He's no Jeremiah Estrada. He walked 19. It's not terrible, but when you watched him pitch, there was a lot of him making big pitches for himself by getting behind batters.
Right.
But yeah, it was, and the odds are at some point one of these guys was actually going to turn out to be good, right? From the vaunted pitching infrastructure.
The pitch lab. Yep.
That's why Jeremiah Estrada is better with the Padres. It was all the work that the pitch lab did to build him up.
Yeah, he was just on the cusp.
Yeah, they loosened the jar cap.
All the Padres had to do was just give him a little bit of a nudge, and he was great. Because what it wasn't was the Cubs had him completely fucked up, and the Padres fixed him in 3 days in the spring. Doing that do this. Oh, I like that better. Yeah, that's great. All right, you're good now. Kind of the opposite Jason Hayward.
Right.
John Malley on day one. Oh, don't worry, I fixed him. Good. That was what was wrong with him. Well, you're about to find out. Oh, good.
What was wrong with him? He listened to me.
There you go.
I moved I didn't move them, but the podcast was not on YouTube. Even back, only the old video ones with me and Brat and Sam.
Oh.
And
I
Kyle.
didn't know those were up there. All right.
And so I set up the feed so they would all feed in there, and they were feeding in. I was getting a lot of copyright violations from YouTube, especially for the movie deep dives. So not they didn't like those very much at all. But the 1984, remember this crap, got flagged because I used Jump as the intro music.
Right?
Well, I had to. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But while I was messing around on the site, I started watching the podcast Brat and I did after the World Series.
Oh,
Nice.
Because I remember we did it on a Saturday morning, and we both got shit faced during the podcast.
oh,
And it was very fun to watch.
Shout out Mike Broad. Happy birthday to him.
Yeah.
If he's listening, I don't know if he is. But
My dogs made an appearance. They all at some point showed up on the thing. His you could hear scrambling around behind him, but it was fun. It was fun. The things we were so sure about, like this obviously this beginning of the dynasty.
Oh God, yeah.
Can't stop the Cubs.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how they were possibly going to play all of the talented guys in the lineup the next year.
Yeah.
Because now Schwarber's back, and Dexter might be gone, but how are we going to cram all these bats in? We've got what do you got to figure out what to do with Javi and with Addison Russell, and it's just you just listen to it going, oh, it's so many bad things happen.
At least we got one nice thing out of it. World Series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that piece of metal.
Nice. Yeah.
It's also funny because we did it right after the election when we finally did it. And we just make passing reference to how fucked up the world was about to be.
Oh, shit. I thought you did it the Saturday in between the World Series.
No, we didn't do it.
Election.
Well, no, because I was in Vegas.
Oh.
The election happened like that very next Tuesday.
Well, yeah.
And we did it the week after. We did it at the end of that week.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, you said on a Saturday. I assumed that the Saturday after the World Series.
I don't think I was back yet from Vegas to do it that Saturday. Yeah, he gives like a 20-minute description of the parade at the beginning. It's fun. It's a fun podcast. I should link to it.
But
it's a fun podcast.
So wait, are you putting the video up of all of these?
Well, we haven't right now. We haven't been recording the video, but yeah, we're going to start doing that. So you're going to have to shape up.
All right.
People
will see the things you do. Yeah.
I'll get an AI me.
Guess I got to put pants on now.
No, you don't.
Well, if you don't stand up, it would be fine.
Well,
yeah, just for that, I'm standing up.
Let's see any other exciting things we're looking for. The Cubs spring training starts a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I will be going to my first spring training this year.
Oh, very nice.
A friend of mine convinced me to go to the Innings Festival. Luckily, Ryan Dumpster is playing opposite bands that I want to see.
Good. He does he does his fake talk show, right?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I'm not going to do that. No.
Yep.
Nope. But so I'm pretty psyched to go see the
I've
Killers.
never been to Toilet Flapper Field. I went to Hohokam.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I haven't been out there. My wife's family used to live there, but they don't live there anymore. Right. So there's nobody to go see.
Okay.
So
yeah, Sloan is excellent. I've been there.
Yeah, I've heard it's very nice. They were building it. The last time I was there, it was being built.
I got a couple tickets way down, like the third base line, way down the left field line. Only $21. I was surprised, but it's also like February 22nd or 23rd or something.
If you're out there and you happen to see Al Yellen, give him the finger for all of us.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
One of the spring trains we went to was when we went to dinner with Len.
Oh,
there you go.
Len Casper took us to dinner. How about that?
The infamous Phil Nevin story.
Yeah, that's the most memorable part of that was my wife asking if there's anybody he hates in baseball, and he's like, he looks at me and says, "You can't write this."
Yeah.
So I just said it on a podcast instead. It's Phil Nevin.
It's hilarious that I've heard that story now probably 8 times,
1,000 times
on this podcast alone.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I play the hits.
Hey, it was relevant.
Almost 400 podcasts. I ran out of stories years ago.
It was relevant this past season, though, just because Len and Phil Nevin almost became coworkers. Actually,
that's why it came back up again, because Phil was a finalist for the manager job. When
would Len quit?
There you go. That's how you get him back, is make Phil Nevin the White Sox manager.
Oh man, no.
I'm still hoping for when Pat finally retires that's when Len comes back.
Yep.
That's not going to happen.
No, it's going to be Zach.
You never know. Len did fill in on some score games during the time when there would be games on ESPN or Fox or whatever that he wasn't calling. He has a good relationship with the score. He'd do regular hits with like Boers and Bernstein or Spiegel or whoever.
He did Pat's bathroom inning during the playoffs.
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
That is correct.
Yeah, he called was it Ross's home or Javi's
All right.
in Game 7?
That's pretty cool.
Somebody homered in the
Probably
fifth. Might have been Javi.
Ross, I think, was in the 6th. So, that would be bad.
But yeah, so we all know he went to the White Sox because he wanted to do World Series games on the radio. Savvy move.
Yeah.
I do feel bad for Len for having to witness what happened last year. He's the only one I feel guilty or feel bad about.
You don't feel bad for Chuck Garfien?
Yeah.
Chuck gets a lot of
Anybody who was
credit.
around in
Chuck gets a
2000
lot of credit for sitting next to Ozzy, I think.
Yeah. Anybody on my drive, I think it was coming back from Green Bay. I heard your list or not your list, but the 20 best.
Oh yeah, Jeff Agrest's list of the 20 best and the 5 worst.
It's hilarious that he does the 5 worst.
Yeah,
I don't know who this guy is, but
he has hammered on Cole Wright since day one. He's not wrong.
Well, he is wrong about one of the 20 best. We know that.
Yeah, but he said it was for the basketball work.
Yeah, he did specifically for his scintillating calls of DePaul basketball. It's like, who would know? Who would possibly know if he's any good at that? What is the DePaul radio audience? 11?
I would hope there are more listeners to this podcast than people listening to Zach Zaidman's call of DePaul basketball.
Oh, I think there probably are. It's like the DePaul. Somebody calls into the stations. Are you guys doing the game tonight? And it's like, sure. Shit. What time? What time can you listen?
What time can you listen? We should do DePaul radio basketball games.
Should. No, they wouldn't even sue us. They'd just be happy for the attention. We could do NIU Mountain West football.
Dude,
there we go.
That's what we'll do.
That's a good idea for a road trip. Oh, that'd be a good idea for a road trip.
When they go to Hawaii?
Is that? Yeah, they're in the mountains.
Every other year they go to Hawaii.
Well,
that'd be cool.
Colorado State in the Mountain
West.
Most
overrated aspect of them joining the Mountain West were the people complaining about how much it'll increase their travel and their travel budget. It's okay. There's a 9-team conference. You play 4 road conference games.
Yeah,
that's it. You got to travel 4 road trips.
Big deal.
I think you can handle it.
Plus, they got all that nice money from Notre Dame this past year.
Right.
$1.1 million.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Also,
that's pretty much standard. That's standard going rate for MAC schools going to.
That's it? I thought it'd be more than that.
Central went there. Was it Central? Western Michigan. Played a few weeks later for Ball State. No. Ball State, I think. And they went Notre Dame at 1-1 against the MAC.
Are they Are they not joining the Mountain West until 2026?
Right. They're in the MAC one more year.
One more year, okay. So never mind. They do go to Maryland and to Mississippi State next year.
Yeah. And those are still the kind of games they're going to play for their... They'll try... You play usually 2 non-conference home games. And then 2 on the road.
Yeah.
And then your 4. Actually, they probably will pick up an extra non-conference game because I think they played the MAC. I think he played 9 conference games. So every other year you were playing 5 home conference games, where that won't happen in the Mountain West.
It only shows 8 for next year.
Okay. Must be a year when they only have to play maybe I dreamt that.
Yeah, because next year they get Holy Cross and San Diego State. San Diego State, is that where Danian Tomlinson? Wait, no. I went to San Diego State.
You might be conflating LaDainian Tomlinson and Tony Gwynn, because didn't Tony Gwynn go to San Diego State?
Well, LaDainian Tomlinson went to TCU. But somebody... Okay. Oh, Marshall Falk.
Oh, Marshall Falk.
He went to San Diego State. Yeah. He was an Aztec.
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me will be where NIU lands for their other sports, because the MAC will not allow you to be in the conference unless you're playing football.
Oh, is that right? Well, wasn't their basketball team in some other conference?
So when they went independent back when we were there,
yes,
because they were going to become a national football powerhouse, where their actual goal was to try to eventually get in the Big 8. They thought that was going to happen.
Okay.
That didn't work. They couldn't get a schedule, so they had to join the Big West. But they only joined the Big West for football, so they played in the Horizon League.
Horizon League, that's
for
it,
everything
yes,
else,
yes.
which is a crap conference. And so apparently,
wasn't DePaul in that conference? It was DePaul, Milwaukee, or Wisconsin.
I don't know if DePaul was.
UW Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's UW Milwaukee, like UW Green Bay, Wright State.
Yes,
those teams.
Yes, yeah.
It sounds like it's either going to be the Horizon or the Missouri Valley. The Valley would be a much better deal, I think, because you'd get your in-state. You'd be in the same conference for every other sport but football with Illinois State and UIC and SIU and Bradley. You'd actually have some like geographic rivals that you're not going to get in the. And they're in the Missouri Valley for soccer because so few MAC teams play soccer. But that conference, if you look at the Missouri Valley for men's and women's soccer, it's weird. There's like schools from all over in that thing cobbling together a soccer conference.
Right? Isn't North Carolina the big men's powerhouse?
Yeah, they're not in the Missouri Valley with NIU. No. They're afraid of them. Afraid of the Huskies. They wouldn't do it.
All right, yeah, the Horizon. That's right. Because I remember that year when they went to the tournament. Was it 91? Must have been. Played St. John's. Played them tough, and then they ended up losing to St. John's in the fourth quarter. When they lost to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, that was the what's his name? Dick Bennett.
Dick Bennett, yeah.
And who was his kid? Tony Bennett. Oh no, Tony Bennett was the son. No, Tony Bennett was the father.
No, Tony's not the old singer. Dick's kid Tony, coach there, most famously won a national championship at Virginia.
Tony Bennett, right?
Tony Bennett.
Right. Okay. Yes. All right. That's right. All right. Now it's all coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. NIU went to the tournament the year before and the year after I was there.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah. The year before that, when you guys would have been there.
Yeah.
That was a really good team. That was like Donald Whiteside and Donnell Thompson.
Yes. Which was after the who was the guy who was really good the year before, or he was a couple years before Lund Battle, or maybe he went to U of I.
Well, Kenny,
Kenny Battle.
Kenny played 2 years there. Then, so this people are gonna love it. The end of this podcast has turned into Husky chat, but so John McDougal, who I ended up being friends with, because he coached at Rock Valley when I was at Rock Valley. He was the assistant coach. He was one of those in his older years. Carl Armato had been a player of his at NIU. He was the basketball coach at Rock Valley, and so he always liked to have like an older assistant coach, and he hired John for a few years, and he was super fun. He was so pissed that they went independent, that they left the MAC, that he was bad-mouthing it so much that NIU fired him.
Oh, wow.
And Kenny Battle had Coach McDougal had coached at Aurora West, and Kenny had played at Aurora West, and that's why he went to Northern. So when he got fired, one of the assistant coaches, Lou Henson, hired one of the assistants, and he just brought Kenny with. And then Kenny was a huge part of the Final Four, the Flying Illini.
Yeah, the 89, right?
Yeah.
Was that 89?
88.
When Nick Anderson wouldn't jump for a rebound against Michigan in the Final Four.
Yeah. Don't ever bother to block out the guy on the weak side, because that ball never goes across Nick. That'll be fine.
If Donahue's still listening to this, this conversation will.
And then the year after I graduated, that was the TJ Lux team. TJ was really good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but that 91 team, I went to a bunch of games because the women's team was pretty good too that year. I went to a bunch of games. That was fun.
Yeah, they were super athletic, so they were a fun team to watch. They were
they beat DePaul at the. Was that at the Fieldhouse or was that at DePaul? No, it must have been at DePaul. But they won. They won a couple of big games at the Fieldhouse that I was there for. It was great. One of my buddies who was never who didn't like sports, like when the game was over, like 2 20-minute halves, right? He thought it was only halftime. He's like, yes, they play 20-minute periods or 20-minute quarters.
Yeah. Boy, those are long games.
Yeah. The only random NIU basketball fact I know is wasn't Cap a coach at one point there?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Kaplan?
Yeah, he coached with Coach McDougal.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's one of our mutual. That's when he decided I wasn't just being, I wasn't always just mean, because we were talking about Coach McDougal.
Oh,
yeah, Cap.
That's
Cap
funny.
went to Hamlin College in Michigan, in Minnesota, and their nickname, they're the Pipers. What a manly mascot! A guy with a flute skipping along
in tights.
I'm sure maybe Cap. Not only did he I don't know if he played there. He probably was just the Piper. That's probably why he was there.
Oh, man.
You still have the little green shoes, Dave. Yeah, how come he doesn't talk about that on the recap?
Somebody should ask him about
Him
it.
and Gordon. God, I hope Gordon's back for another year. I say that as though I've ever listened to the recap, and I never have. I know it exists from his incessant promotion of it. I know Chuggo has podcasts because they never stop talking about him, but I still have never heard one. But I'm sure it's great.
Oh, man.
I'm glad to see they made it to the Super Bowl with all the money they saved from firing most of their hosts. Congratulations, guys. All right. Well, the next time we do this, the Cubs will be, at least skipping around Arizona playing catch.
All right. Well, that'll be
hopefully
something.
not skipping the balls while playing catch. But
I'll see how far Nico can throw.
Right.
The ball rolling the last 40 feet to first.
Yeah, the Mets are in Florida anyway, right?
No, Nico.
Oh, Nico.
I'm not worried about Nick anymore. Now I'm worried about Nico and his surgically repaired right arm that they're not worried about.
That's how Rain making fun of Nick Madrigal is in my head. I swear I thought you were making fun of him.
Yeah. Well, I hope he's got Nick Madrigal arm strength at least. That's what Nico should do this year, though, is do the
three
when he throws to first every time. There's a grounder to Nico. Oh, boy, he's skipping to first again. And he makes a 8-foot throw to Michael Bush. That's 2 outs.
Oh, man. All right.
Many of us have herpes.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. Got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much, Awesome.